I think you have two ways of looking at the world.
Yes.
You can take pride and say that I worked for this and I did it with my own hard work, or you could say I'm very fortunate to have been given everything that I'm given, and I'm grateful, and I'm not better than this other person. Yes, I work hard, but it's all the blessings that I've had that have allowed me the ability to do what I do and get to where I am.
Hello, family. Welcome to the next episode of the Live Run Boundless Show. I'm your host, Kenneth Pinckney. Today's guest is a gentleman. I got something out for the first time in an unusual way. I was in a relay race last year, September, a race I did not plan on being in. It was kind of like in the very last minute, kind of in the same day. I ran the relay out some trails I'd never been on before, out in San Diego area. So I missed the turn direction a couple of times out there on the trails. So the last turn, I think I was really in trouble. The last turn I missed. It started getting dark. It got dark on me. It was nothing but like the wood, the trails, the woods, the critters and all that, And so I had to find my way back up, find my way back to the finish line. So eventually, the dude can make his way down, looking for me, had me get back to the top. So that's how I first met him.
Yeah, Kenneth, I will always remember you for that, and that's a great way to meet, honestly, because I think I appreciate the way you're telling it, and from my experience, it was something else. Let me tell you, it's a funny memory in retrospect. But yeah, it was during Sycamore Canyon in September. You jumped in last minute, like you said, to this relay. So we were kind of concerned because it's kind of a tricky course. It's easy to get lost. And then it got really, it started getting kind of late, and all the other relay teams were done, and we were starting to wonder. It's getting really dark. Where the hell is Kenneth doing? We were about to send a search and rescue team for you, dude.
I know.
And so we were so concerned, and I was just like, I decided I got to go out there. Somebody's got to go out there and look for this guy, because he's got to come from this direction. He's going to come back in this direction. So I finally saw a headlight in the distance, and I'm like, that's got to be him. And sure enough, it was you. I got it on video. I sent you the video. It was pretty funny in retrospect,
It was a funny at the time, though. It was like it was a funny. Everybody was scared,
Yeah, you actually ended up, I think, going to Santee, and I was I know that course really well, and I was thinking, like, where the hell could he have gone? I think did you end up at a 7-Eleven, I think?
I don't know where I ended up at, but somewhere I found my way backtrack, and somehow I found
Thank
my way
God,
back.
because I think your wife would. I think we just told her.
Call it.
We were like, I think his cell phone might be off. He was probably saving it because your battery was like on the last 5%. Man, it's always an adventure out there on the trails. I'm just glad it ended up safe, So
it was meant to be, It was a lot of lost. I know how I found my way back. I really did. It was dark. I couldn't tell what was that, but somehow, some way.
Yeah, but I'm just, I'm glad we have that memory together, because that's pretty. In retrospect, it's funny,
the definitely.
Good times.
Yeah. So over time we kind of kept in touch, but not until like a few months ago, I've been asked to be a co-host on an interview with Miss Verna Volker. If I hope I say her name right. Excuse me, she's not saying her name right. Because she's also a Native American. They asked you to be a co-host, but you weren't able to be a co-host at kind of late,
Yeah.
But to be able to learn about your life, your background, your culture, that's down to me. Well, I want to also interview you, about your running story, and also return to your kind of like a spiritual journey.
For sure.
Yeah. So family, I don't know him. I know most of my San Diego people know him. Let's welcome Mr. Phillip Kwahan. The San Diego Kumya native.
There you go.
Kumeyaay grew up in Mesa Grande Indian Reservation.
That's right.
If I say that right. In 2012, he started a running journey to lose weight, which led to a spirited journey to represent his Native American heritage and family. So some of his many accomplishments, I know he don't like to tell by himself, but I'm going to tell it. And he completed a 3-day, 90-mile spirit run. He attempted his first 100 mile in 2014, I'm mistaken. October 2020, when he had turned on a young age at 32, he celebrated his birthday by running 32 miles every day of his birthday month for a total of 1,000 miles, if I'm not mistaken. And today, November 22, he became the first person in modern history to run 200 miles around San Diego, 61.5 hours. Does that record still stand?
Oh yeah, I don't care about the record. I think, yeah, but I think it was 61.5 hours. But okay, yeah, and I was the first person to do a 200-mile loop around San Diego. And in that little bio I sent you, I told you about the significance of that. And the significance of a Kumeyaay native, somebody who's native from San Diego, being the first person to kind of do that. And I say the first person in modern history because it's my belief that we used to do this on a regular basis. We had messengers in our tribes that would run these long distances. So in my journey of self-discovery, I kind of found I had a good ability to run these distances. And so I figured like it's got to be more than just me. It's bigger than me. It's kind of like an ancestral thing, It's like it's in our genes. And so I know that we used to have messengers in our tribe, and this goes for tribes all across the American continent. We had messengers who would just relay messages like 100 miles plus. So it's just me kind of rediscovering it and kind of reviving it as part of our culture. Because in the local Kumeyaay culture, we don't have that. We have a lot of cultural revitalization programs, language programs, bird singing, a lot of like trying to keep the culture alive. But that's one thing that is kind of lacking, and that's like the long distance running aspect of our culture. And so that's kind of something I've taken on personally as my mission and my calling. It's something that kind of happened to me, and I kind of ran with it. So that's why I think it's significant that this was something that kind of fell onto me, and then I kind of recreated history by creating my own present, and it's kind of like a circular thing, so but
so tell us, the Little Run Balance family, your life growing up in that Indian reservation.
Yeah, for sure. So real quick, you're like the second podcast I've ever done. Okay, so the first one I've done was with a buddy, Raul Chrisman from Viejas. He has a podcast called Live from the Res, and I did that specifically because it's part of my mission is to get my story out to help inspire other Native people and just to show people what's possible. I do not like talking about myself. I do not like so. Like I avoid podcasts. I don't like, I'd rather just stay on the down low and just kind of do my thing and have people notice naturally, meet me out there like I met you out there and say, hey, oh, what are you doing? Oh, you did this, man, that's cool. I like the organic kind of interactions. But for the sake of modern day living, we all live isolated lives, unfortunately. I know. And so I understand like we need to find modern ways to kind of get our story out in a way that would be really effective in the way that we wanted to. So, so you're the second podcast I've ever done, and so, I don't like talking about my story, but I will for the sake of inspiring people, all the good things that we all understand why we do what we do.
Definitely.
So growing up on a reservation out there, it's in San Diego, and a lot of people don't know, but San Diego has the highest concentration of reservations of any county. So it's 13 Kumeyaay reservations, 18 reservations total. And my reservation, Mesa Grande Indian Reservation, is one of the smaller reservations out there in the middle of nowhere. It's a lot of people think like, well, San Diego, like, you know, it's pretty urban, blah, blah, blah. How are you going to have rural? No, it's pretty rural if you've never been out there. It's in the middle of Black Canyon. It's past Ramona, in between Ramona and Julian, out there in the sticks. You have to drive like 30 minutes just to get there on dirt road cliffs. Have you ever been out there?
Yeah, they can have.
Yeah, so it's in the middle. It's called Black Canyon, not to be confused with the Black Canyon of you know, Arizona. But
I got you.
But yeah, it's a really small, isolated, maybe about like 20 houses, 100 people total, in the middle of nowhere. Okay, and so we don't have a casino. A lot of people, when they first hear that you're Native American, the biggest assumption is like, oh, so you have a casino, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. The question that I get most, and you get a lot of stupid questions from a lot of different people, right? But the question, I used to drive for Uber, and they would ask me, oh, if you're Indian, why are you driving for Uber? Why are you working? And I just thought that was the stupidest question ever, dude. It's like no other race gets that question. You know, it's like imagine somebody saying, oh, if you're Mexican, why do you work? You know, it's just such a fucking weird question. It's sorry, excuse me. It's such a weird question. It's a weird question, but the assumption is that that Native people have casinos, but not every Native person has casinos. Okay, and so even in San Diego, where we have a high concentration of casinos, my tribe doesn't have a casino.
Okay,
and so we're one of the poorer tribes, the smaller tribes.
Yeah,
and so growing up, I grew up in a lot of poverty, you know, generational poverty.
Yeah.
And so I kind of being out there, you're like isolated. If you don't have a car, you're kind of screwed, you know. And so we live about like an hour and a half away from school. Every morning I would wake up around 5 just to get to school around 8 or so, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it was rural living and poor living, and you're kind of isolated around drug use, alcohol use, depression. It's just you know, the funny thing is when I take people out there, they're like, oh, this is such a beautiful place. It must have been nice to grow up here. And you know what? As an adult, I can appreciate it. Okay. But when you're younger, and all you associate it with is like just misery and you know, despair. It's like it's a lot different growing up there, you know. But yeah, like, you know, it's really beautiful, dude. Like if you it's actually part of the 200 course that I did, and that was it's a really beautiful area. And yeah, but growing up, it was just my cousins, everybody was like either alcoholic, in and out of jail. My cousins died in their early 30s, like in my age, like from cirrhosis of the liver. It's crazy, dude. So it's just hard living, and it's kind of hard to explain unless you. It's like essentially like ghettos of the rural area, you know.
I mean, I grew up there. I grew up in a rural area, you know, in a small town in South Carolina. And, you know, not a whole lot of opportunities, you know. I mean, you could do good, you know, if you really work at it, you know. But grew up there, but didn't want to live there. So I appreciate it going back, you know, to my home.
Oh yeah, it's easy when it's nice when you have a choice, you know. When you don't have a choice, it's like anything we do. It's like we love being uncomfortable if it's our own choice, you know. But the moment it's not our choice, then it changes the psychology of it, right? That's why we opt into these like 100+ mile distances, because it's our choice, you know. But if somebody held a gun to our head and say, "Hey, you got to run," it's like that's a different story, right?
It is. So reading your bio, you talk about like generational trauma. You know, so what does it mean for you? What did it take for you to break that cycle of that generational trauma and choose a different path from your family?
You know, I'm 33 years old. I'm about to have a baby pretty soon.
Yeah.
She's gonna be a baby girl. And I've had a lot of time to think about this, you know.
Okay.
And honestly, I think I've been very blessed to be the person that I am, to have the mind that I am. I think you have two ways of looking at the world. You can take pride and say that I worked for this and I did it with my own hard work, or you could say I'm very fortunate to have been given everything that I'm given, and I'm grateful. And you know, I'm not better than this other person. Yes, I work hard, but I'm very it's all the blessings that I've had that have allowed me the ability to do what I do and get to where I am. So I believe more in that, that outlook. And so when you ask me what have I done, I don't know
what
if
does
there's
it mean for
anything.
you? What does it mean for you, or what did it take for you to break that cycle of generations trauma, you know, in your in your family? Yeah.
What did it take? I think it was just from an early age. I just had that mind, you know, that thought differently, you know, and so that's what like I from a young age, it's like I saw the path that my family was going down, cousins and stuff, and so immediately it's like I knew that like this is not how we should want to live. Okay. And so that is different than most people and how they might react. You see your environment and you kind of you can't help but become your environment, right?
Yes.
And so I see my environment and I question stuff all the time.
Okay.
And I think, why are we like this? This is not good. This is hurting us. Why are we like this? So from a young age, I was always able to see things a different way. And, you know, I could easily look at everybody else in my family and cast shame and say to them like, hey, if I did it, why didn't you do it? You know, but that's not my attitude. That's not my personality. We all have different personalities. We all have different mindsets. And so all I can be is grateful for the blessing that I have having been given the mind that I have to allow me to see things differently, to allow me to choose lifelong sobriety. So from a young age, I made a choice like I'm never going to drink.
That's all.
I'm just, you know, it's just, I don't have the luxury of being able to casually drink. And if you are a runner or an addict, like what we do, you understand what this means. Is that some people have the ability to casually do things, but I don't. And it is what it is. And so I am very aware of like my personality, my family upbringing, my environment. And so I choose my activities wisely. And so I realized from a young age, like some people can casually indulge in things, but I don't have that luxury because look at my family, look at my personality. Every single thing that I've ever done has been addictive in nature. Okay. So I've done Rubik's cubes, right? So yeah, we'll get to that later, but I've obsessively competed in Rubik's Cube competitions. That was an addiction, okay? And I know a lot of people don't see it and it looks cool, but it really was like in order to be world class like I was, you had to be addicted to it. And then I got into running and endurance stuff, and then that's easily you can get addicted to it too. So I chose to channel my addictive personality into positive things instead of getting into alcohol. Like I don't even want to find out what would happen if I started drinking casually, because I'm pretty sure it won't end well. Could you imagine the 100-mile, 200-mile equivalent of going on a drinking binge? That would be me, you know. So I think I'm just like grateful and thankful for at a young age. I was just blessed to have that mind and to have that outlook instead of just kind of absorbing things and just without like thought to like, hey, can this be different? You know?
So wherever you done, you put your all into it, you know, like the Rubik's Cube running, you know. Yeah, so
110%.
Yeah, what you would have done like the drinking, it was like you casually want to work for you.
If I fucked it, I'd be dead, dude. Yeah, no doubt. Like, because like, I mean, look at my family. I mean, there's proof. You know, as much as like I want to think like, oh, I'm different. I'm no different than my family. You know, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. But I had something different in terms of the mind that I was blessed with. To be able to see things from a larger picture and to see like, hey, this wasn't how we were supposed to live. We were never supposed to live this way, you know. And so that's how I was able to break cycles that were toxic for my family. And so when I'm thinking about raising my baby and raising my kid, I'm just really thankful that with each generation we get a little bit better. And it's too much of a burden to feel like I have to solve every issue of every generational trauma. But I like to think that with my parents, my generation, the generation of my parents, they weren't perfect. They were far from it, but they were a little bit better than the generation before. They maybe treated me a lot better than their parents treated them. They did what they could, you know, but with each generation we get a little bit better. And so having my child coming up soon, I'm just so thankful that she will never have to see her dad drink or have a problem with alcohol. Either her mother either, you know. She will have it as good as she should have it, you know. And that's something I'm very grateful for.
Definitely. That's awesome. We're gonna get to another like maybe like family, I don't like to say trauma, but I got a lot, it can run in the Black community too, wherever, you know, obesity, you know, what was your wake up call and make a decision not to want to be like overweight or to make that necessary change in your life to become who you are today?
Yeah, that's a good one. So growing up, I was always the fat kid, and a lot of people are surprised to kind of find that out because I don't really talk about it much. I don't like to make myself like super one-dimensional. I've been many dimensions, and so when people find that out about you, it's like, oh, you're the former fat runner, or like, or you're the Rubik's Cube guy. You know, so I have so many aspects of my personality. I don't like to mention a lot of them just because people start seeing you in one dimension. But growing up, I was the fat kid in school. I think in middle school, I was like 5 foot, I weighed 235 pounds, you know, and so I was pretty chubby.
I was too.
And yeah, okay, so you understand.
Yes,
and so a lot of that is kind of like environmental factors. You know, your parents feed you what you know they feed you, and you can't really control that. And so, but when I got older, I got a little bit thinner in college, and then like towards the end of college, I started gaining that weight back. And a lot of it was because I was working on student activist stuff. So I was the chair of the Native American Student Alliance there. We were putting together the first annual, the inaugural powwow there. UCSD had not had a powwow there. So we were doing a lot of work. So I was eating Panda Express, just burritos, whatever, you know, and I put on 200. Yeah, it's easy, you know, when you're working hard, you know, it's like, you just need to eat, and eating is like kind of like on the back burner. You're not really thinking about it. So I put on a lot of weight, got up to 235 pounds. And I thought to myself, how am I going to go through life walking the red road in so many different ways and just being sober, you know, just trying to get an education, but then I'm gonna catch myself and like let myself slip up on the weight thing. And so I'm like living my life good in all these ways. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm going down this path where I'm like 235 pounds. And if I don't stop it, I'm going to get up to 300 pounds, you know? So I had a moment where I weighed myself and it's 235 pounds. And I'm like, crap, dude, like, wow, I got to stop this, you know, nip it in the bud kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And so, after college, that's when I realized I weighed 235 pounds. And then I went to the gym. And you know, I was, you know, a lot of people, it's like I was poor not only growing up, but I was poor up until 32 years old, dude. Like it followed me throughout my whole adulthood. Up until recently, I've only had financial security recently with my casino job. Ironically, I got a college education, but that didn't do anything for me. I ended up going to casino dealer school for 3 months, $1,500. And you can make 6 figures off of being a casino dealer. I don't want to go off on a rant about higher education, but I'm just completely disillusioned with higher education in our system. But I digress. I graduated. I was 235 pounds. I got on the scale, and I realized like I need to stop this. And so I started going to a gym that my brother was working at. I couldn't afford a gym membership at the time, but he was working at 24-hour fitness. And the only time I can come in was when he was working. He would work at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I was thinking, okay, well, no excuses, right? 3 o'clock in the morning is when I'm going to work out. And so it's a free membership. That's an opportunity. My brother's there. I can go work out while he's there. So I said, okay, I'm going to take this opportunity. And I went to the gym at 3 o'clock in the morning pretty regularly. And that's when I started like losing weight. And then I started running. And then I'm like, once I started losing weight running, I realized like, hey, this is why people like running, because it feels good when you're lighter. You know, when you're heavy, it sucks, dude.
I know.
But when you're able to lift your feet off the ground, man, you feel like you're flying. And I'm like, man, this feels good, you know. So the weight started dropping, and I got under 200 pounds, and the 200-pound thing was like a good benchmark, you know. You're like, I'm getting lighter, you know. So and then it all kind of you know, just snowballed into where I'm at today.
That's great. I can relate. Really, I can relate to that. You know. And so, and for that point forward, you just, you know, it was a lifestyle change. You know.
And definitely. It's not like I was like a partier or anything before. You know, I just It's just it wasn't. I was a cuber, dude, speed cuber. You know, so that was my thing. You know, and so I spent a lot of time just sitting down, just. I got my Rubik's Cube right here. Just so I would like practice the heck out of this, and I could for like in.
Maybe I need to practice some more.
Yeah. So from like 2005, I first started that in 2005 in high school.
Oh wow!
A friend brought it, and I'm really competitive, dude. Like not like seriously competitive, but friendly competitive. So he was like, I can solve it in a minute and a half, and I'm like, show me your way. You know, I thought that was like the craziest thing ever. And so eventually I beat his time. I got down to a minute and 29 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, what's the fastest time in the school? And then I realized it was like 51 seconds. I'm like, how are you going to solve a Rubik's Cube in under a minute? And so my curiosity, you know, curiosity is the thing that we all have in common. Like whether you're a runner or whatever, you're always curious about what else can I do. So I was like, can I get under a minute? And so sure enough, I beat his record. And then I was like, what is the world record, dude? I looked it up. I think the world record was like 11 seconds, and my mind was just blown. I said, how do you solve it in 11 seconds? There's got to be some kind of cheat, right? There's got to be some way. And so 11 seconds was the time, and I was like, I want to see if I could beat that, you know. And so it's that same kind of curiosity and that same like, can I do it? And then I started learning the methods that they use, because I said there's no way that they're using my beginner's method to get 11 seconds. So I said whatever it takes, I want to see if I can learn it. And so I had a natural ability to kind of memorize the algorithms that needed to be learned. There's like hundreds of algorithms that you have to learn and memorize in order to be like world class at them. But I did it in 2005. In 2006, I started college, and that's when I went from a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big pond. Now I met Kevin Wu. Kevin Wu is the president of the Cube Association. He can solve in under 20 seconds, dude. And so he became my rabbit. And I said, I got to beat Kevin Wu. Kevin Wu. And so Kevin Wu can do it under 20 seconds. I'm going to get like 15 seconds. So I got down to 15 seconds. And now I'm good enough to actually start appearing on like a national scene, you know. And so I started going to competition, and then I started getting noticed, and it's like, who's this guy who can solve it in like less than 20 seconds on average? You know, we haven't heard of him before. And then I just kind of straight to the top, dude. And I became like a national record holder. I was like 6th fastest in the world. I think my average got down to like 9 seconds. It was just, so I was 6th fastest in the world, fastest in North America. I competed in U.S. Nationals, World Championships in Germany. So I got pretty serious with that.
That's crazy.
And so, and so I wasn't running at all, dude. You know what's funny is that if you talk to a lot of like ultra runners or people, we have these kind of different lives where we become really good at like something else, and then it's like maybe we jump onto this or something like that, you know. There's this woman. Her name is Victoria Brown, and she's a really good multi-day runner now. She's from Canada. But I was surprised to find out that she was like a world-class poker player, one of those like serious poker players who play for like millions of dollars or whatever. And I'm like, damn, like you never know, like somebody could have like one of these ultra runners. Like we are all over the place, you know, and we have like expertises in many different things, and you just never know, you know. So a lot of people would know me for the Rubik's Cube, but a lot of ultra runners may not even realize like, hey, this guy's like a Rubik's Cube freak, you know. But yeah, so I was Rubik's Cubing. I was gaining weight. Exercise that wasn't even on my radar, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, your life changed, it changed for the better,
Yep.
So do you run it and do Rubik's Cube at the same time also?
Yeah. So that was actually a fun. So I first started running in 2011. I did my first marathon in 2012. And since I was kind of coming off of my Rubik's Cube peak, I was kind of like going into retirement.
Yeah.
I said, maybe I want to try to do something real big for my retirement thing. There's nothing official for retirement. I just call it retirement.
Yeah.
But I said, maybe I can combine my running with the Rubik's Cube because I heard there was a world record for most Rubik's Cubes solved while running a marathon.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. And again, the curiosity, right? Like, what's the world record? Can I do it? Right?
Yeah.
So I looked it up. And I think it was like 175 Rubik's Cube. So I did the math and I'm like, that's not that many.
Yeah.
And so I said, I think I'm going to try to go for the world record of Rubik's Cubes solved while running a marathon.
Yeah.
And so that was in 2014. I decided to go for it. And the hardest part was figuring out I wanted to try to do 1,000 Rubik's Cubes because I figured that should be possible.
Yeah.
But the hardest part was figuring out how am I going to get 1,000 Rubik's Cubes to solve while running a marathon?
Yeah.
Okay. They don't tell you this, like how to do it. There's no blueprint. The people who did it before, they had backpacks full of Rubik's Cubes.
Yeah.
If you're talking about 1,000 Rubik's Cubes, dude, that's going to be impractical. How are you going to carry that many? So the hardest part was figuring it out. What I did was I got a golf cart.
Yeah.
And I had a crew of 4 people.
Yeah.
One person was mixing it. It was a friend from the World Cuban Association. He was an official scrambler judge. One person handing me the Rubik's Cubes. He was also the person who would catch it in a fish net. We would have they would be following me, like in front of me, actually, while running the marathon.
Yeah.
And so I would be solving it, blah, blah, blah. And I would throw it into a fish net as I'm done. And then somebody else would hand me the next Rubik's Cube. And it would be about 15 Rubik's Cubes, like just in cyclical fashion. So somebody would just scramble it, and then I would solve it and just solve it, done, solve it while running the marathon. And so I ended up doing 845 Rubik's Cubes, just like shy of my 1,000 goal, but I still shattered the record before that. So that was just like a fun thing to do, and it was a pretty interesting world record, and it's just like a fun thing, I don't take it too seriously, it's like, hey, not everybody can solve Rubik's Cube and run a marathon. Like, it's pretty funny if you ever get a chance to watch the 5 hours of footage. There's some funny commentary on there, and it's funny seeing the people's reactions who are running the marathon, and they say, "Oh my God, this guy's passing me while solving Rubik's Cubes. I feel like crap," We're like, "Oh my God, this guy's amazing." It's pretty. It was a pretty fun experience looking back on it. So
okay, so you dudes do it. So one more. So one more question about the Rubik's Cube. So are you still doing it now? You do play with the Rubik's Cube while you're running?
Not while I'm running. I just separate. I barely cube these days. I do it at break on work. I'm still able to solve it under 10 seconds. I got to keep the sword sharpened, but I actually haven't competed in like 5 years since 2017. I was thinking about that, but I kind of want to try to go back to competition. But a lot of so these days, a lot of the competition are like 10-year-old boys. Oh. And that's been a change, dude. Like so in the beginning, it was like your Caltech nerds, your college nerds, MIT nerds, the young men in their early 20s who were like kind of like nerds, right? College nerds.
Yeah.
And eventually over the years, it became like a sport for kids. And so I started, seeing a lot more 12-year-olds at competitions, and it was not fun being beat by a 12-year-old on a regular basis. It was not good for my ego, so I kind of had to bounce, but
hanging up.
Yes, exactly. I'm getting too old for the sport. I think I was like 25 and I said I was too old for the sport. But yeah, now it's like 10-year-olds. And I feel a little bit weird just hanging around a bunch of 10-year-olds like, hey, what Rubik's Cube do you use? Dude, what kind of lube do you use? So it's not, I had to choose a different scene,
Okay, I got you. So you just stick to running.
Yeah. Where I used to be the younger, when I was like 25 and I started ultra running, everybody's in their 40s and 50s. And so I went from being like the old man to like the young kid,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Uh, so running, get back to running. It was your way to lose the weight and to be healthy, but then become a more spiritual journey. Well, so
Yes.
when did that take place?
I think it had to do with my 90-mile spirit run. And so in 2011 is when I started.
Okay.
And then one night, and I told you this in my bio, one night I had this crazy idea, after you get runner's high, you get all these crazy ideas, like, oh, I'm gonna sign up for this or that. So that's when I got the idea to do this 90-mile spirit run from Sherman Indian School to my home in Mesa Grande.
Okay.
And I didn't do more than like 4 miles in one go. So when I told my partner Whitney, she was my friend at the time, when I told her this, I said, hey, this is gonna sound really crazy, but I'm gonna try to do a run from Sherman Indian School to Mesa Grande. And it's gonna be 90 miles, And she just as soon as she heard that, she wasn't like, you're crazy or anything. She was like, okay, let's do it, So Whitney has actually been my day one, and we're having our baby together now. I've known her since UCSD. She's been there since day one, always supportive of my crazy ideas. So that day she heard me and she was like, let's do it. So it was gonna take me 1 year, and I didn't know anybody was doing ultra marathons or anything, whatever, So it was like, okay, well, let me make this a hard challenge, but not like ridiculous, like 90 miles in one go would have been ridiculous for me at that time. I was like, well, let me do 30 miles a day for 3 days. That's going to be like, that would have blown my mind. I wouldn't have seen myself being able to do that. So I trained a year for it. I did my first half marathon, my first marathon, and then I started doing ultra distance stuff. I did my first 30-mile run, and that was on my own. It wasn't part of a race or anything. Again, I had no idea people were like running in the mountains or stuff. I was just doing this on the road, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. So then come January 2013 was the day of my 3-day spirit run. And that's when it kind of like turned into like more of a spiritual thing. It was like so it was in honor of the children who got taken from their homes and put into boarding schools. So back in the early 1900s, the United States has a history of taking little kids from their homes and putting them in these schools to kind of take the Indian out of them. And they would beat them if they spoke their language. They would, just completely indoctrinate them into mainstream American society. And it's actually one of the things that gets overlooked, and not too many people talk about it. But imagine that happening today. Imagine somebody coming in and taking American kids and taking them and saying, you can't speak English, you're not going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, you're not going to blah, 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 and we're going to indoctrinate you into this culture. I mean, could you imagine the outrage? Rightfully so, It's one of those chapters in our country that is just really, really ugly, And so there were a lot of kids who got taken away and put into the schools, and then a lot of them tried to run away. A lot of them died, unfortunately, along the way. They tried to hop on trains or whatever, and ended up dying. My uncle Alfonso Soto ran away from that school in the early 1900s when he attended it, and he made it home. And so that was a story that was circulating in my family for a minute. But I never really thought about it until I started running. I said, how far really is that? Like, how did he make it that far? And so it was supposed to be like kind of a coming of age kind of thing, where it's like, I'm going to choose a struggle from the past to kind of recreate so I can have an understanding of who I am and where I come from, and by understanding the struggles of my ancestors. And that was supposed to ground me in who I am as a person to better guide me towards a stronger future. And so I think it was at that point that my running went from just like, oh, casual weight loss, whatever, to more of a like spiritual and cultural like calling. You know what I mean? So January 2013. And then I finished that, and it was just a life-changing event. I can't even put into words just the impact it had on my tribe. They came out, supported me, my family came out and supported. It was to this day, it was like the greatest thing I've ever done. And so from that point on, my running completely like changed from just for fun to something a lot more meaningful.
Okay, that's great. So your passion for long distance running, and just tell the family a little bit about the process to discover your passion, you know, if you could.
Yeah, so the process to discover my passion.
Yeah.
So I already talked about like my evolution to
Okay.
to long distance running,
Yeah.
but after that, so after the Spirit Run, I kind of was like, I'm gonna go back to being a gym bro, because my thing was like I wanted to build muscle, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. Running wasn't really my thing. I always saw myself as the big kid who's never really a runner, so. I'm not a skinny cross country kid, that's for other people. I'm somebody who could put on muscle, not a runner, So after a while I took a break, and then I helped Whitney run her first half marathon, and that's when I realized like, hey, I kind of miss running, So it kind of called back to me. And then that's when I started getting back into running. And then I ran Rock and Roll Marathon again.
Okay.
And then it was at that point where it was like, that marathon, I ran it and it felt really easy. And I thought to myself, if it feels this easy, I wonder how far I can go.
Okay.
If I wasn't forced to stop at 26.2, like, so that distance curiosity started right there. And that's when I started thinking 50, 52.4 miles, so double a marathon. Let me double it, right? So in 2013, I started, just running on my own to discover how far I can go. I call it Forrest Gumping it. I just hoofed it from Temecula down to Torrey Pines.
Wow.
You go down the 395 highway, and then you go up the 76. The 76 highway is actually now a lot more safe to run on. They have wider shoulders. I don't know if you've ever been on the 76 highway, but before it used to be just like a 2-lane, really sketch highway. I don't recommend doing it. I was young, dumb, and stupid. But I wanted to see if I can go from like point A to point B. It's like, man, if I could run from here to there. So that's when I did my first 52.4. And my legs, dude, they were like completely dead. And
of course.
And then you start thinking like, how do people do double this? And then I did 100K, and that was again on road just by myself. I wasn't part of a race or anything. And then so that's why it's like, for me, like, I've always been an ultra runner. And what that means is, so there's this kind of people convolute they confuse the terms like ultra runner and trail runner. They use it synonymously, right? But for me, ultra running means like just running long distances. It doesn't matter like the surface or whatever. I was into ultra running, period. I wasn't into trail running. I didn't know anything about trails or anything. Trail running happened to me as a result of getting into these longer distances and realizing that most of these longer distances happen on trails. So the only way for me to actually continue to evolve in this sport is to adapt to trails. But really, I draw no discrimination between road and trail. Like, I'm fine with running 100 miles of road, or 100 miles of trail. That being said, there's nothing like trails, right? Trails, like, there's magic in trails, and there's like a healing aspect to trails that we may not fully be able to comprehend or verbalize what's happening when we're on the trails, but it's what I call good medicine, and there's something healing about that contact that we make with the land and the air. We don't, science takes a little while to catch up to these things, but it's things that we as Native people have had an understanding of for a century. Every now and then you'll see an article that says like, oh, there's a study showing that spirits can be, or that negative energy can be gotten rid of with sage or something. And there's science behind like sage being able to get rid of certain ions and electrons or whatever, but it's something that we've known for like forever. So I think the same thing with like running on trails and just running in general. The contact that you make with the earth, that is the contact that you need to maintain a healthy sense of well-being. And the less, the more disconnected we get from the land, the more strife and troubles we see within our mental health. And that's why there is like a big connection between mental health and running trails. We don't realize it. We just think, hey, it feels good, and got the runner's high.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit more spiritual than that. It's what we need. It's our medicine. We need to have that connection. It's where we came from. We came from the earth, and if we're just sitting in our desks all day and we don't do it, that's why we have so many problems in our society, and we have so many shooters, and it's just whatever. So
totally. Yeah, I mean, we meant to be out, out and about, and then not stuck inside.
Yeah, like imagine. So we have a lot of shootings in this country, and it's a shame. But have you ever heard of a trail runner going on a shoot? No, it doesn't happen. If everybody was a trail runner, we wouldn't even have time or money to be shooting up anybody.
Definitely.
So I think there's a direct correlation with our mental health and running and being out there and connecting with the land and connecting with the elements.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. I love being out in elements, be outdoor. I can't wait just from being and work from the computer, all day, and you just get out and just really just be out and be free, from being inside,
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is you don't have to understand it from a scientific level or a conscious level in order to benefit from it. Everybody can benefit from it, right?
Definitely. And with running and represent your family, your Native American heritage, what does it mean for you to represent your heritage now with running?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So first and foremost, like I don't represent anybody besides myself, and I think you know that, but like, so I think we all come from like different backgrounds, even if we're from the same ethnicity or whatever. So within being Native American, there's lots of different experiences, just like with being Black, just like with being Hispanic. There's lots of differences, right? So I don't claim to represent anybody other than who I am and where I come from. I represent my family. I represent, the Kumeyaay Nation to an extent. But I think it is important to be out there in these spaces and to remind people that, hey, like Native people used to do these distances on the regular, and that we are the natural endurance athletes of this continent. And so when you talk about Gordon Ainsley, the guy who did 100 miles Western States, he was the first person to do Western States. He likes to I call that Christopher Columbusing. You know what that is? That's when you take credit for something that already existed as if you discovered it, right? So he's over here saying like, oh, I was the first person to run 100 miles on trail. Bro, we've been doing that, okay? We've been doing that here. That's just how we live. But you were the first person from like of European American ancestry to popularize it. But so I think it's important to remind people that we've been doing this here. We've been doing this forever. And just because you ain't heard about it doesn't mean it's not a thing. And if it's not a thing, like for my tribe, we don't have too many runners. Why is that when our history showed us that it used to be a thing? Let's have those conversations, let's have those conversations about why do these things no longer exist.
Definitely. That's great. Sometimes we forget, because they have, because I don't put them in the back burner. I know the words and news, So okay, about the true history,
Oh yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna go on another rant. Everybody when they get into ultra running, they talk about the book Born to Run. And the guy who wrote it, Christopher McDougall.
Yeah.
Okay. I never met the guy.
Yeah.
But the idea of him discovering this indigenous tribe in Mexico who can run like hundreds of miles and him getting famous off of that, that's another example of Christopher Columbusing, right? Because you're getting famous and you're getting rich off of indigenous people, off of native people who you claim to have discovered. And so you're being another Christopher Columbus. And so he's made a name for himself off of native people, and he benefits entirely off of that image when it's like we've been here and we are here, and there are people in your own country that are doing these kinds of things. And so why are you acting like this is new? It's not new, you know?
Yeah. Been around for ages, you know. Yeah. So
yeah, so it's just there's nothing personal. I don't know, guy, but it's just like it's just the concept of
I
like
understand where you're coming from. Yeah. So I definitely understand, you know. And you got the right to speak what you know, well, just share, you know, to share your thoughts, you know.
Yeah, and so I don't know. It's because there's a lot of native fetishization these days. It's very hip to be native. You know, everybody wants to be native, which is a lot different than the previous generation. You know, so my name Espinoza. A lot of people might be wondering, oh, Espinoza, isn't that a Spanish name? Isn't that a Mexican name? Let me tell you a little bit about what's in a name. Okay. So my dad, Frank Espinoza, his dad was Joe Espinoza. So Joe Espinoza, he got the name Espinoza from a stepfather he had, who was this guy from Mexico. But his original, his mother's maiden name was Mishquish, which is a Kumeyaay word. Okay, Kumeyaay last name. So Lola Mishquish was her name, and so Joe Espinoza was really Joe Mishquish, but he changed his name to Espinoza, one, because he liked his stepdad, but two, because it was a lot easier to get a name with, it was a lot easier to get a job with a Spanish last name, because people weren't willing to hire Native Americans. They were more willing to hire Mexicans at that time. It was only recently that being native was a cool thing. And if you talk to anybody who's like in the generation before me, they will tell you this, like, you were always ashamed of being native. You know, it wasn't a cool thing, you know. But now it's like, it's trendy. It's like, ooh, I'm an indigenous runner, you know. It's like cool to be native, you know. And so Christopher McDougall is kind of contributing or riding that wave. I guess he's not, but he's contributing to that idea, and he's kind of capitalizing off of this whole like it's cool to be indigenous thing. And so I digress. I don't want to go on too many rants. But if you, let's just say, if you ever came to me and said like, "Hey, Phillip, let me write a story with you. Let me help you write your autobiography," I just tell him, "Peace, no, thank you. You know, I'll do my own thing. I'm not for sale. You know." Hashtag not for sale. Hashtag not for sale, dude. Just don't even try, dude. Save your native like fetish for somebody else, you know, who has a price tag, not me.
I understand.
Yeah, so I have a lot of opinions on all that things. So thank you for humoring me, and just I just wanted you to get a real like sense of my personality. You know,
definitely. You know, that would make you who you are. You know, so yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so everybody different. You know, everybody got the right to share their opinion. You know, yeah. So
yeah,
definitely. And speaking with that, you know, we live in a world with so much negative that's happening around us. How do you want to have a positive impact on people, the community, the world, even, if you could?
That's a good question. So we all wake up, and every day we are faced with a variety of choices that we can make. You know, we all have the capacity for evil, and we all have the capacity for good. So when I look at people who you know, who do evil things, like they shoot up shoot up a school or they shoot up a place,
Yeah.
it's very easy to think to myself, like, how can they do that, or why would they do that? But instead I think to myself, like, and I know whether or not I want to acknowledge it or accept it, I am capable of that same thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of like circumstance, or a matter of the right or wrong ingredients meeting or something like that. So I try to make sense of senseless situations and try to understand from a compassionate perspective, like, how did this person get to where they are, that they see this world differently than what I do.
Absolutely.
So in order to make this world a better place, I try to understand people from where they're coming from and their world perspective.
Yeah.
And so when something doesn't make sense to me, I think to myself, how in the hell do you see the world that way? That's completely different than how I view it. But I try to imagine the circumstances that happened in their life that led them up to do what they did, or to believe what they believe. And then I try to have some compassion or some understanding of that. And that kind of understanding, if you're able to mentally do this kind of exercise, you will understand what it actually means to love. Okay. And so love is not just something that we practice with people that we like. It has to be something that we practice with people that we cannot stand, and that we think are even evil, right? And so when what I do to try to make this world a better place is, whenever I feel like this person is getting on my nerves, or this person is like evil, I try to first check myself, and then try to see where I'm coming from and why I'm having this reaction, and then try to see where they're coming from, and try to make it make sense, this make sense when it otherwise doesn't. And so that's a little bit about how I try to make this world a better place, and obviously, just trying to live your life with more kindness, and just trying, when it's easy to maybe to think negatively or whatever, just try, because I'm a perfectionist, and I'm very, very hard on myself. And I realized I'm hard on myself, and because I'm hard on myself, I'm also hard on other people. And it's something that I personally try to work on, is not being so hard on other people, and holding them to as higher standard as I would myself. And so that's what I mean by having grace with yourself. You can have grace with other people. And so there's a lot of work that I think I can do, but that we can do, like introspection, like that we can do to make this world a better place. And it starts from you, right? It starts from you working on your stuff. So that way, when you interact with another person, you're contributing like positivity,
Yes. I love that, because to love someone that we seem like they're done wrong, probably have done wrong, had done evil, or the worst of the word, it's hard.
It is
hard thing to do,
Yeah.
But that would solve, loving somebody, that would solve all the problems.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the things is, like, for me was drunk drivers, like how for me, it's like, I can't see myself forgiving or understanding drunk drivers, because it's like, why would you be so blah, 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 why would you be so reckless and selfish and, take somebody else's life? But if you see these weak spots in your psyche, you could like challenge yourself to like think about somebody who you feel like you cannot ever forgive. And if you could challenge yourself to see them in a different way than you do, then this is all part of like having a stronger mind, and this all plays into the whole like mental aspect of ultra running and everything. Like, this is all like things that you learn about how to face challenges in life and have a stronger control over your mind, and not let your mind control you, right? So, but yeah, I think it's very important to, when we're coming across people who come from different political beliefs or anything, is to meet people where they're at. That's the biggest thing. to meet people where they're at. Because what I found is that it doesn't matter how right you are, and it doesn't matter how much you have truth on your side. If you do not meet the person where they're at, then your message will not be taken the way you want it to. So let's say I believe like white supremacy is an issue in this country, and I have numbers and things to back it up. There are people who, when they hear that word, their mind shuts off. And so you have to, whether or not it's fair, you have to understand that you're going to have to compromise the way you communicate things in order to effectively get your message heard. And that's ultimately what we want, because we want our message to be heard and understood. The last thing you want is to be misunderstood. And so there are people who because I have my beliefs, and I have my political beliefs, and everybody has their own political beliefs, and some of mine are a little bit strong. And there are people, runners, ultra runners, who I consider family, who are really like, I'm really close with, and I really like, but they're on the extreme opposite end of the political spectrum. And so what this has taught me is that we can have that kind of relationship, that kind of close connection, without really like having to be on the same page politically. And for me, like when I was younger, I couldn't even comprehend being friends or like with people on the opposite end. You know, it's just so. I think this is part of like the whole like becoming more mature and more wise. You start to realize like, hey, the world isn't as simple as you want it to be. And so I think there are people who they have a certain message they want to get out, and I understand that, and I agree with them. But I think it's very important the way that you package it, because the truth is no longer good enough these days. Like I can have the numbers to say this or that, and then you tell it to somebody else, and they're coming from where they're coming from, and they're gonna shut their mind off, and they're gonna think like this person's crazy. Like if I start talking about white supremacy or whatever, you know, they're just gonna turn their mind off, and they're gonna have this impression of you, and you can't go in thinking like this is how it's got to be. We got to go in thinking like we're in this together, and my goal is for you to understand me, and for me to understand you, and not just like a no compromise, like take it or leave it. I don't have to compromise. I don't have to. Why should I have to hide my truth or, you know, silence myself? No, I think part of it is you got to learn how to compromise and just meet people where they're at. That's my big thing.
Definitely. So we live in a complicated world, you know, and so and for just to really just understand where the person coming from. I mean, we got to like or certain things. I guess we don't have to agree, I guess, no, but to love, to help, you know, and just
Yes.
So it definitely, you know, just love, you know.
So I have a little bit of a different like way of going about achieving the same goal as maybe somebody who's a little bit more let's say radical, or you know, like kudos to those who like that's the way you want to speak, then kudos to you. Like I'm not trying to silence you, or I'm just saying like we got to learn how to get through this together in an effective way. You know?
Definitely, absolutely, totally agree, totally agree. Now we get close to the end. So how has running impacted your life, or also what's the greatest lesson you learned from running, or what brought you joy? You know, all three wrapped in one.
Yeah. So how has running impacted my life? Running is one of those things. I'll always be a student, you know. I'll always be learning. You know, some people might look at a couple of things I've done and they might say, oh, you're a legend. Oh, no, I'll never claim legendary status. It doesn't matter if I'm in this for 30 years. It doesn't matter how many records. No, I'll always be a student. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is that you're always going to be learning. You know, you if you do it right,
Yeah.
This sport is supposed to humble you and
Yeah.
keep you in your place, and to remind you that you're of this earth, you're not above it,
Yeah.
and that's the beautiful thing about it. And so it's changed my life in the sense that it's healed me. It's healed me from the generational traumas that were like subconscious, that I didn't really know that I was kind of experiencing. I could even pin it down to a single moment. In 2016.
Yeah.
At the end of San Diego 100.
Okay.
My first 100-mile finish.
Wow.
As soon as I crossed the finish line, I felt this kind of it's kind of like a release. It was weird. Like it was like a healing, like a letting go.
Yeah.
Like you can let go of that. And my running since that point has completely changed.
Okay.
Before that point, I was running to prove a point.
Okay.
Maybe myself and to other people.
Yeah.
And that point was, as sad as it is, that point was that we're not, Native Americans are not the losers that the world sees us as. That we need somebody like me to show the world that we're worth much more than that.
Okay.
And so I was operating from this place of inadequacy.
Yeah.
Maybe not for myself. I've always had like a very strong sense of self and confident in myself, but inadequacy in terms of my identity and how we come off to the world. And so when you operate from this feeling of inadequacy, I feel like it taints your running and it taints what you do. So it becomes like a negative thing, like a vice. And so this is where I draw a distinction, because running can be very beautiful, or it can be a vice that that's why a lot of addicts fall into it. And so if you are feeling inadequate, it can be something that you try to fill the void with, or you try to so I was trying to prove to the world something. And then when I crossed that finish line, I had this realization that I don't have to fight anymore. It was like this again, this wave of like something changed. And so my motivations for running stopped becoming so negative based, and it started becoming more out of love for the sport and love for myself. And that's how I feel like that's the only way that I could ever fulfill the destiny that I feel like running has called upon me, truly. Because otherwise I would suffer from like setbacks and things happen sometimes when you're on a spiritual journey. Things happen that are outside of your control that you may not understand. You trip over yourself, things happen, your bike gets flat tires, things happen. Is because sometimes if you don't realize it, you're exerting this negative force into something that's supposed to be beautiful. Right. And so I was doing that up until a point. And after that point, not to say that I didn't experience any setbacks, is that my running became more of what it's supposed to be. Pure love, goodness, the way it was supposed to be, the way it was in prior generation. None of this like reactionary, we have to do that, I have to do this to prove a point to anybody.
Okay. That's great. It just really natural, it just so running kind of like changed life. 2016 would come like not to prove a point, but just really just more like just again because of joy of running, maybe something like that.
Yes, it's like I feel like we all have a different like destiny or calling. Some people may not ever find out what that is, but for me, I feel like I'm very fortunate that like this found me. And I don't even know, like I know I can say why I'm here, why I'm doing this. At the end of the day, we're all being moved, ways that we don't understand. And so this kind of happened to me, and I'm experiencing it. And I learned to let go let go of things, because when you hold on to things, you change it, and that's not how it's supposed to be. And when you learn to let go, you don't have to fight. Then it becomes everything that it's supposed to be, in the beauty that it's supposed to be, in the beauty that you want it to be, So, and I've honestly, I see myself doing this for as long as I can,
No doubt. No doubt.
And my running has really improved a lot. And again, doing that 1,000 miles, 32 miles a day, doing that 200 miles. I recently did 234 miles, dude. It's all happening as it should, And it's not yet my time. In terms of, you look at people who are kind of getting a lot of attention. I've never been one for attention, so I don't really care one way or the other. But you see a lot of people who are getting attention. A lot of people ask me like, "Hey, why aren't you more well known? Why aren't you more whatever? Why aren't you more well known?" And a part of it is because I don't really seek out that kind of attention. So if I'm not seeking it out, then I'm not going to get it. But I'm not in any rush. I don't have any kind of desire or any. I've learned to let all that go and just trust that things will happen the way they're supposed to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
And I mean, whatever. I do what I do because I'm very passionate about it. I'm supposed to be doing it, and I believe strongly in that. It's my calling.
Yes.
And I love having organic interactions with people who I meet in person at these races and stuff. And they hear about me organically, and this podcast is great, and podcasts are great. And there's so many people I've heard about virtually. I'm like, thank God I heard about them. But I think having that in-person direct kind of interaction where it's just like, wow, this man, I can't believe I met him. Like,
definitely.
So I think my goal is to be that person, that old man that's out there on the course, and then the race director has to tell you, hey, did you know that person did bad water 38 times in a row, like blah 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 or whatever. It's like, no, I had no idea, because he was just, you wouldn't even assume, because he's just out there grinding, but you have like kind of a legend, it's that kind of thing, more low key, rather than like, hey, are you the Phillip that I've seen on YouTube? The one who's like, the one who has like 10 million followers and blah, blah, blah. Like, no. I ain't, I shy away from that stuff. Like, because I've, it's the introvert in me. I don't like having people really notice me for things or pay attention, really. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable,
Yeah, I understand. Not wrong with that. That's cool. Well, the last question, we got time to think about it. So, your boundless thought and motivation in a few words.
Yes, my boundless. So your thing is live, run, boundless. Boundless, right? Okay, so I like to say my version of live, run, boundless is live, run, balanced. Okay, so balance. Okay, so you have to have a balance. Okay, so I believe in pursuing your dreams and going as far as you can, and not believing in reality that is shown around you. So my whole life I was shown this is your reality, and I was able to see beyond those bounds. I was able to see beyond the bounds of the reservation, and to see that I can do much more, we can do much more is possible. So that's what I think in terms of running boundless, and I understand that, and I see that. My thing as I've gotten older is live, run, balance. Okay, because you have to there's some people who and I went through this phase where you have to be extreme, and you have to go off the deep end, and you have to go all in 1,000%. But it really pays to have balance, because if you want to be doing this for a long time, then you have to be patient. You have to be sober. You can sign up for 100 miler every week if you want, but you're on a one-way ticket to burnout city. Definitely. And I've seen it happen before. But it's important to have balance
Mm-hmm.
and to understand that running doesn't have to be your identity.
Oh yes.
You can do great things and meet great people. Don't ruin it by making it something that is perverted, like a perversion of something that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You don't have to prove yourself to the world through running. This
Yeah.
is something we're supposed to do for good reasons. And so this goes
Yes.
back to what I was telling you about when I was operating from a place of inadequacy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ultra runners, and I have a lot of friends who deal with inadequacy issues, and they feel like maybe running a certain distance will get them uh, the worth that they don't feel like they're worth. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I would say run balance in terms
Yeah.
of don't don't burn yourself into the
Absolutely.
ground,
Yeah.
and don't worry about making running your whole identity, because it should
Absolutely.
be much more than that. If you have kids and a family,
Yeah.
don't just be there for your kids and family. There's nothing wrong with being a father. I'm about to be a father, and
Yeah.
guess what? I'm I'm not gonna do San Diego 100 this year. I was signed up
Yeah.
for it. I
Yeah.
was signed up for it, and a part of me
Yeah.
is like, oh, I wanted to do it, but guess what?
Yeah.
Life is more important in
Yeah.
some ways,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not gonna be out there. My Whitney is due like any day now,
Oh
and
yeah.
could you imagine she goes into labor and I'm like out there running 100 miles, and it's like, oh, hold on, let me finish this real quick. I was joking with her though, for a Coca Donut just happened, and I was like, it was
Yeah.
on my radar, but I'm like, it's too close to the due date for me to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And I was watching the live stream, and I was
Yeah.
watching the
Yeah.
leader. I was watching the leader in the
Yeah.
final 5 miles, and I
Yeah.
said, if I was in the lead of this race and I have
Yeah.
5 miles left, and you went into labor or you're about to give birth, I don't know. I think that would be the point where I'd be like, just hold on 5 more minutes, I'm gonna finish this thing. No, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the idea is have balance.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
just do it. Just be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't be an a-hole about this. Okay, just do it. Do it. Make it fun and enjoyable. Don't
Yeah. Yeah.
take
Yeah. Yeah.
yourself too
Yeah.
seriously.
Definitely. Definitely.
Don't take yourself too seriously. Have fun with it. Don't
Yeah.
make this like bigger than what it is. Be there
Yeah.
for your kids. Be there for
Yeah.
your family. There's some men who I don't even know that they have kids until like 5 years running with them. I'm like, holy crap, you have kids?
Yeah.
How did I never hear about your kids? You know, it's just crazy. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why you can do these extreme things,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's very easy to get carried away and to make
Yeah.
it like your whole identity. I
Yeah.
would say there's much more to life, and to have more balance in your life.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
things that we talked about, maybe like about like 5% of it was running. If you listen to a lot of other podcasts,
Yeah. I know.
they'll talk entirely about running,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but
so that way I'm standing out. I like to talk about life, the journey, and then not just running. But yeah, it's about running, but about life also, and the process of the journey, and running just happen to be a part of it.
running is part of your life. It's not your whole life.
Yeah. 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 Definitely.
I
Definitely.
think we forget a lot. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
easy to live in the one-dimensional world of social media where you're scrolling and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this bad person, this bad butt person just, completed another 200 miler. Like, what am I doing with my life? Guess what? You're doing exactly what you need to be doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's definitely sometimes you forget that. Especially
yeah.
we get caught up into it. And
Yep.
so and just run it. I knew that's a tool as a platform for other things. Yeah, and just connect with people, or just or reach out to people. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Control your passions. Don't let your passions control you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for to be willing to come on and allow me to interview you, talk, and hopefully that time we get to do in person.
Yeah, for sure.
With your baby daughter.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad we
Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad we got a chance to actually do this. I think
yeah,
you reached out to me and on Instagram,
yeah, yeah,
but I think it was in the request folder, and every now and then I look in
yeah,
the
yeah,
request folder, but I
yeah.
don't see messages if they're not like
Okay,
follow me or something like that. It's like it
yeah.
shows up as a request, and I'm
Okay,
like,
okay, yeah,
when did this person send me this message, and how am I just reading it? I'm like, oh my god. And I'm like, man, that was a missed opportunity, but we finally worked it out,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
glad we did.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt, no doubt. Glad we did also. So again, Phillip, thank you for this opportunity. I hope we see each other again in person soon, very soon. And
Yeah.
maybe next year you get to do the Coca Donut 250. next year.
Maybe the price point is kind of high, and with the kid, it's kind of like,
oh no, no, you
I gotta choose. Yeah, maybe I'll find somewhere. Yeah. If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
so
there's a way. Yeah.
But I don't know, 250 miles. I don't know. You got to have a strong will for that.
Yeah, I'll be a part of your crew. Would you let me?
Oh, for sure, buddy. And thank you so much for being who you are, dude. You I think you bring a lot to the San Diego community. And everybody who is out there. They know who you are. They know where you are. They can hear you. So it's a great thing.
Yes, I can't do yelling.
You bring a lot. You bring a lot to the community, and so thank you for doing what you do. And I appreciate it. And always never stop being who you are.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I have enjoyed doing it. Like people like the community, and I'm grateful to be part of this Verna community. And just able to share.
Yeah.
And just to bring other people along for the ride. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, right.
Well, I'm glad we made it through this with only maybe I cussed once. The reason why I asked that is because it's like, man, like when I'm talking, if I were talking to you in person, I talk to a lot of friends. I have a lot of opinions on a lot of different things, and sometimes they're not G-rated. So I'm just like, how am I going to make it through this being myself without cussing? I understand you want to make it family friendly, but my family, my family ain't friendly. So my family's like that. I'm actually the nicest person in my family. So there's a lot of people who think I'm a jerk or a-hole. I'm like, if you knew my father, if you knew my family, dude, if you had any idea. But I appreciate the fact that we made it through without cussing them. That was an accomplishment for me.
That's funny. That's funny. I love that. Hey, I'm glad we did also. If it would have happened, we just had to edit it out. That's all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't want to make your job harder than it had to be.
Yeah, but it's cool. I got a great crew that added my video for me. So shout out to Tyler. So it made me really good. But again, thank you. And thank you, Live, Run, Balance family, for joining me for that episode. Of Live, Run, Balance show. Live a life beyond the boundary that you set on yourself. And my man Phillip, he had showed that he break the boundaries of family history, trauma, obesities, and many other stuff to become the man who he is today. And I let how he was raised, where he from, stop him from achieving his goal, and just being, on the top of his game, as a runner and as a family man, soon to be dad. So definitely.
As my hero Tupac says, reality is wrong, dreams are for real.
Okay, awesome. That's great. And once again, until next time, see you soon.